you all for re-recording. Thank you so much.
Yes, again.
And thanks for your patience. No worries. All right. So I think, Adrian, we have some folks that are going to be joining us. I keep seeing the admit folk pop up. So we'll just give 30 seconds here to make sure everybody is good. And what I want to do is I want to get on to business updates. So thank you for everyone's patience as we had everyone introduce ourselves. That did take a while. We do have a lot of creative districts now, but also I want, since we can't do in-person networking, I want to be able to give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves, to share what they are, what they like about their creative districts, some of the work that they're doing, because that's important. Everybody gets an opportunity to do that, and you all get to learn a little bit more about your fellow creative district representatives and also additional districts, so you're able to see the connections and how there's similarities and the differences as well. So we have a few, next slide please, Adrian. We have a few quick topics that we're going to go through here. So we're going to talk about these 5 items really quickly before we get on to the next portion of the day, which is our sort of FY22 in review. So I want to just share with you some information about our burgeoning creative districts. We're going to talk about an upcoming annual conference that we might have an opportunity to participate at. I want to give you some updates about the directory and the website, the rural cohort, and our promotional videos. So let's get on to the first item, Adrian, which is the burgeoning creative districts. So next slide, please. So this is a map of some of the creative districts that we are working with that are coming down the pike, as it were. Or the pipe. So you'll see there's a number of them that we're working with. We have several that are sort of in active stage planning. These are the folks that are well into their planning process. They're starting to develop, and they have developed already where their district is going to be, and their structure and that sort of thing. And so, we're working with Vancouver, Bremerton, Coupeville, Yakima, Walla Walla, College Place, and Newport. I've actually been to all of those districts recently within the past couple of months. I was in actually Bremerton just on Friday, and Yakima the week before that, and Vancouver a couple weeks before that. So lots of travel for me, but it's been really, really excellent to see the progress that they're making. My presumption is that Bremerton is probably going to be the next district to apply, and then we'll go from there. And then some of the other districts that we're actively working with that are still in the early stage planning include Anacortes, Yelm, Ellensburg, and Ione. Ione has a town of 400 people, way up in near Medellin Falls. If any of you are familiar with the northeast part of the state, I'm actually going there next week to meet with their planning committee for the first time. We've had some conversations online and stuff like that. So just wanted to let you know, these are some folks. There are other districts or other communities that have initiated the conversation, but from our perspective, they're in the extremely nascent stages. And so we're not even really calling them early stage planning yet. So things go well, we should have probably about a half a dozen or so more creative districts within the next year or two, which will bring us up to close to 20, which is pretty amazing if you think about it. So that's just a brief update about districts that we're working with that are coming down the line. So next, Adrian, we can go ahead and stop sharing screen. We're just going to talk about some of these other items that we're going to have. If anyone has questions, please put them in the chat. We may or may not be able to answer them right away, but we can get to them. We'll make sure that we keep a log of everything, and then we can send out answers to everyone post-event. So the next thing I want to talk about is there's an opportunity potentially for us to do a panel at the next year's 2023 Association of Washington Cities annual conference. It is in Spokane this year. It takes place from June 20th to the 23rd, I believe. And they are calling for session submissions. And so the reason why I'm bringing this to you was at the recommendation of a colleague who thinks that it would be a great idea to do a session at AWC about the creative district. And so when I thought about it, I thought it would be much more compelling session than for me to just go up there and be my talking head normal self and talk about stuff. Have a panel of folks from various districts who can participate and talk about their districts. We can do a moderated panel, and I think that would be really great. So I'm throwing this out there for folks who might be interested in participating. We're probably wanting to just get 4 or 5 people, so maybe one person from a district. I don't know that we have room for all 13 of the districts, but maybe a few of them. And we do have the opportunity to be able to pay for some travel expenses for folks. So if that's a barrier for you, we can probably figure that out to a certain degree. We're not going to put you up in the, Four Seasons if they have a Four Seasons in Spokane, but we'll be able to defray some of your costs for that if you can participate. So just think about it. Adrian's going to be sending out a post-event survey. Like I mentioned, there will be an opportunity for you to say yay or nay. And we do need to know kind of quickly because I have to submit this before or by December. So we want to get at least to see if there's an appetite for it or not. And if so, then we'll do it. And if not, then we won't. So that's kind of that about the AWC conference. Adrian, I don't know if you could grab the link to the AWC conference and throw it in the chat real quick.
I will.
Okay, awesome. So if people want to know what it's all about and what the Association of Washington Cities is, that would be great. Some of you who work for the cities know what AWC is, and so you're probably familiar with the work that they do. The next thing that we'll talk about is, thank you, Adrian. So she put the link to the event in the chat for everyone to take a look at. Again, it's in Spokane next year. So the next thing we want to talk about is the directory and website stuff that we have been mentioning. So our agency is going to be undergoing a bit of a website refresh. It's not a full-on rebrand, but we're going to do a refresh, and we're going to adjust the creative district group, the section a little bit about the communities. So we'll be putting out a call for updated information from the districts. We're going to be adding a couple more districts. We don't have all of the information for the newest districts up on our website yet, and we're working on that. We're thinking about putting an interactive map of some kind potentially if we can do that and the resources are there. And then we want to talk about our directory. So for those of you that are relatively new, this is a conversation that started last year. We want to talk about what kind of support creative districts need. And what we heard from a lot of the districts is that the artists were asking for them to help them with marketing support. And so they asked us to see if we could do that to a certain degree as well. As you know, we're not a marketing agency, we're a state government agency. And so there's only so much we can do in that regard. But one of the things that we're going to be working on is kind of a directory. And it's going to be similar to, or if you work for a chamber or you understand those membership directories, it's going to be kind of like that. It's going to be organized a little bit differently than that, but it will be organized. There will be a section that you can sort by district, you can sort by type of artist. So we're going to be working on getting that launched, hopefully before the end of this fiscal year. At some point, there is going to be a relatively big, moderate lift from all of you to be able to put that information in your section for your particular part. Our goal, we don't have the bandwidth or the resources internally to 100% manage this. So we're going to need some support from all of you to manage your own work and manage your own stuff in your creative district. So, the more you focus on that, the more robust the directory will be for your particular creative district. Adrian, when's our group meeting, our team meeting for the website stuff? I think is next week or the week after. And so that's when we're really going to start moving this whole thing forward. So we'll keep everybody posted on that. But I wanted to give an update. It's something we've been working on for a while, and like a lot of things because of COVID, the urgent priorities have taken over our space, and we haven't been able to always do the important things that are, maybe not hair on fire urgent. So that's where we're headed to next. If there's any questions about that or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat. The next thing we want to talk about is our rural cohort. So many of you know we have been convening the rural districts for a sort of special training, special support for them as at their request from our last convening. I think it was maybe the year before last. To make sure that they can have additional resources that they might not have that some of the other larger cities have, as far as people or financial resources. So we're doing some training. We've been on hiatus for a few months, and we're going to be starting that up again in December. So again, if you're in a rural district, please know that we're going to start that up again. We will, in the survey, ask if you're interested, and then if you have topical ideas that you would like to have be built into the structure of those meetings, so we can have a fleshed out agenda. Again, it will be bi-monthly, so every other month starting in December, and we'll go from there. Any questions or comments about that? You can put them in the chat. Oh, great. Mari says, those meetings have provided great resources and support for our smaller communities. That's wonderful to hear. That's our intention. We want to make sure that all of the districts are getting the support that they need. And we recognize that everybody's kind of in a different place, and everybody has different resources and different needs. And it's kind of challenging, as you can imagine, to make sure we have a statewide program that provides equitable structure for all the districts, but also has enough flexibility to provide the support that the individual districts need or the types of districts need. So again, we have that for the rural groups. If folks who are in non-rural areas are like, hey, we want to have a cohort too, that would be something we could certainly do, if there's an appetite for that. So if there is, let us know. We can talk about that as something for a future initiative that we could have for the districts. Let's see, we have some other things in here. Joanne says, thank you so much for doing the rural district meetings, helpful. Thank you. We hope so. And then the last really quick business update that I want to share with all of you is that we, as you know, many of you know, we have been talking about doing promotional videos for the creative districts. And so we are working on that. We originally were going to do one sort of really long promotional video for every single district. But when we got the quote back for traveling to each of the districts for individual filming, it was a lot beyond our budget. So we've revamped the thinking around that a little bit. We will continue to do those district individual videos that are going to be little shorts, but instead of traveling to the individual districts, what we're going to do next year is at the convening, we're going to bring the videographer there and set up a space where we can interview all of the folks from the different districts. So we can do the interviews there, and then you can provide us with assets that we can fill in. That's probably going to be the most cost-effective solution for that. We don't have literally hundreds of thousands of dollars to spend on filming videos across the state. That's a great question, Sean. So I enjoyed spending the day with the film crew, helping them out. So great. So I'll continue, and then Sean will be able to answer your question. So we are working on, we do have two videos that we had originally planned to do that were kind of longer videos. They're each roughly 10 minutes long. One of them is about the sort of economic development, creative economy part of the creative district work that we're doing. We filmed that earlier this year. It is complete. We're going to actually show you a clip of it here in a minute. But we're going to publish that to the world after our next board meeting, which is on November 10th. We want to give our commissioners an opportunity to view these videos first. They like that sneak peek, so we're going to do that. and then we'll be unveiling the videos to everybody in the world and sending out links to them. So as Chuck mentioned, there was some filming that happened in Chihuahua, I guess, a couple weeks ago. I wasn't there because I was in New York City at the time, so hopefully it was good. And so we're working on the second video. It's in production right now, editing for this one's about creative placemaking. So that's what the two main focus areas are that. And that one.
So when was your next board meeting?
It's on November 10th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, and so that is a public meeting. We're not going to show both videos in their entirety, but we will probably show clips of both of them and provide links to the board so they can see that. And then our plan, our communication team is going to do a whole promotional campaign about the videos after that. To answer Sean's question, who did we choose to make the videos? We're working with Elliott Creative out of Seattle. Elliott Graney-Sauke is a filmmaker, and many of you may remember Elliott because she was my co-facilitator at that original creative district convening that we did in Toppenish in the fall of 2019. So we had the first one that we did in Lacey in March of that year, and then that second convening where we brought everyone together for that full day of training. Elliott was the person who co-facilitated with us, and that was great. And I actually didn't know at the time that she was a filmmaker. So, you know, we've been able to do this, and it's been a really great and collaborative project. Presumably, we will continue to work on the project, assuming her company has space for that, but we'll see how this goes, obviously, you know, with making sure that we can choose, you know, diverse folks and, you know, filmmakers that are as locally based as we can. So that's where we're at with all of that. So what we're going to do right now, and I'm trying to catch up on time, so we're just 2 minutes behind instead of 10, so I've made up a good amount of time so far, is Adrian, if you want to go ahead and share screen, and we're going to show the first couple minutes of this first video that we have created. So Adrian, please go ahead and play it.
Who does not want to live in a community, and who does not want to stay in a community, invest in a community that doesn't have a great arts community? People want to do that. People want to stay in communities that are supportive of the arts. They want to stay, they want to invest, they want to raise their families there, they want to create those partnerships. And so economic developers have to look at that strategy, as this arts piece cannot be cut away from economic development. It has to be part of that conversation.
We know that the arts contribute more to the national economy than agriculture, transportation, and utilities. So in the Rainier Valley, we have one of the highest densities of artists in the state. So those creative industries have an even greater impact on our economy. In 2019, the revenue from cultural nonprofits and arts organizations and creative industries in Southeast Seattle was over $330 million. Clearly, that economic activity drives other economic activity. So if somebody's coming to this neighborhood to watch a play, they might also eat out at a restaurant or go shopping, pay for parking, hire a babysitter. The arts have also drawn tourism to the area, so all the other small businesses also get additional customers.
In Thurston County, the rough numbers, the gross domestic product is $12.9 billion. So that's the size of the economy in Thurston County. Not huge, it's not small, but it's substantial. If you just cut out the SIC codes for just the arts components, it's about 28% of that whole. So for us as economic developers to not pay attention to that 28%, we would not be doing our job. We have to recognize that there's huge employment, there's procurement, there is training opportunities. It relates back to the K through 20 system, even the pre-K pieces. It's a really cool piece of how we develop a quality community.
One of our traditional industries, in addition to stone carving and logging, has been agriculture. And so we're working with the state of Washington, the feds, the county, the EDC to develop this ag park. And there's an intersection between the creative industry and the agricultural community, and that we're looking to create a facility where value-added products can be created. So, you bring in, a farmer's cabbage and you pair it with, a chef or somebody that is creating novel products, using, creative minds and pairing it with our traditional ag economy it's a great marriage.
The Rainier Valley.
Okay, thanks for that, Adrian. If you want to just hide the screen for a second. So that was just a short little snippet of where we're headed. We could play the whole thing, but it's over 10 minutes long. And we know how that goes sometimes when you're watching a video for a really long time. So be on the lookout for that. It will be published officially to the entire world in about 2.5 weeks, sounds like. So, and the other one is about creative placemaking. And so those are the two topics that we feel are the largest benefits, or the purpose of the creative districts is to develop the local economy and also to help create a sense of place and to share that with local community members, and then obviously with visitors who come to the communities. So we are going to go ahead and move on to the next section of our agenda, which is just FY22 in review. So I have really quickly a report of activities. So as most of you or all of you know, we do have a requirement for annual reporting from the creative districts. It's a required piece of your creative district certification. And it is something that over the long term, if you miss some of these benchmarks, it's going to have a negative effect on your possibilities of being recertified. We want to make sure that we're getting and capturing information and data from folks. We skipped COVID reporting. I mean, we took them in, but so we want to make sure that we can capture this information. And we've had some requests from folks across the creative district community. We'd love to hear what other folks are doing. And so I put together really quickly just sort of slides to give you some information about the districts that submitted reports. A few of them haven't because they're brand new, and so they weren't required to submit a report at the end of fiscal year 22 because, like for example, in Burien, or in Moses Lake, what are they going to talk about that they did for a month of their creative district certification? So their first district report will be due at the end of this coming fiscal year. So I put this together based on the reports that everybody gave. I'm going to quickly go through them all. The creative districts are listed in alphabetical order this time, because that was just how, when I pulled the reports, they came off for me in alphabetical order. So Adrian, if we want to go ahead, first slide, thank you. So we'll talk really quickly about Bainbridge Island. As our folks from there mentioned, this was their first year of certification, and they made a lot of stuff happen. They developed a brand, as you saw, and as shared that, and created a website. Their capital project, their first funded project that they got from us, is already complete. So it was a sort of a festival stage that folks can use. So that part of their district is already taken care of. They helped to secure a city poet laureate for Bainbridge Island, through the city council, and we're making sure that they were a big part of that. This poet laureate is actually a funded position, which is great. They get a stipend. So that's something that's really excellent. They did their program soft launch, as they mentioned, which was in July. This picture is from that day. I was unfortunately not able to join because I got COVID in Washington, D.C. the week before, so could not join them, but I did have an opportunity to join them for their first annual festival, the Bridge Festival, which they mentioned that was on September 10th. And that probably more information about that will come out in next year's report. And then additionally, their WSDOT signs were already installed. So they hit all of those big benchmarks year one, which was pretty impressive. So Congratulations to Bainbridge, and also congratulations on making it through your first year of certification. So next we'll talk about Chewelah. Chewelah is in their third year of certification. So they were certified in June 2019. And they've also been doing a lot of really great stuff. This particular year, they instituted a monthly spotlight gallery. So they have a arts walk basically once a month, and the district itself hosts one of those galleries where they spotlight new artists each month. There are 5 galleries around the community now that sort of have popped up since their creative district started, including their signature gallery, Trails End, which actually moved, I believe, and that happened after the year was over. But they recently got into a bigger space, more in the downtown area, which is cool. The creative district is now sort of baked more into their city planning efforts. They have established a mural tour, and sort of that was an outgrowth of their original creative district project that they did. So there were a number of murals that were involved in that. There's a lot of downtown revitalization that they mentioned, including new businesses popping up. And also the district themselves have started doing monthly artist gatherings. And so this is a feedback mechanism for artists and creatives to come together and to share stuff that they're doing, and to provide additional information to the district so they know the direction they need to take their district so that it's reflective of their artists. Next slide, please. So next is Edmonds, and Edmonds has been certified for 3.5, almost 4 years now. It'll be 4 years at the end of this year. They focused a lot of their efforts on an advertising campaign. So you can see this advertisement right here, the sample of that that they're using to reach out to folks who are looking to site their businesses there. They've instituted a window cling program for downtown businesses to participate in their creative district. So when you go downtown, you can see a business that's like, you know, a cultural or creative business or a friend of, so that they can provide that kind of collective grouping of district businesses. They're working in conjunction with some partnerships, with some partners on a cultural corridor project. This is part of their a larger initiative for the city that's been taking place, or was planned several years ago, put on hiatus, and has been brought up again. They expanded their free concert program and have also seen an uptick in that as well. And then again, also mentioned that there were a number of new local businesses that came on board during this past fiscal year. So next we have Issaquah. Issaquah has been certified for 2.5 years. They were one of 5 districts that were certified at the beginning of COVID, basically between March and May of that year. So they were one of that group who started their district in a strange time, but have been able to pick up steam and make things happen. So they completed their wayfinding sign design, and in the process of installing it. That was part of their capital project, their original one, and moving it forward. They're doing a feasibility study for a creative arts center that's actively happening right now, and that's going to benefit the entire community. They worked on doing a holiday light display. This image on here is a demonstration of that. So they partnered with local businesses and also got some support from Puget Sound Energy and Virginia Mason Hospital to do this lighting display on a bunch of different buildings all across downtown to kind of help draw interest to the downtown and invite people back, as it were, after sort of COVID started doing that. Streetscape mural project is something they're working on, as you saw at the one of the things that Amy shared, one of the pictures about that. And then one of the things they mentioned that I thought was really cool, this is what the creative district did this, but it was part of something that happened within their district, is that there was an adaptive reuse of a building from a brewery, was a former brewery that moved out and has now become a boutique movie theater, which sounds really cool. So I'm guessing that's probably a grown-up movie theater. So, a place for adults to be able to watch movies in a comfortable environment and maybe have a cocktail when they do it. So I thought that was a really interesting and creative way to reuse a building and still have it be a gathering space for people in their downtown area. Next, we have Langley. So Langley has been certified for 2.5 years also. They embarked on a creative survey, got 350 responses to get feedback from their creatives in the community, see what they needed from them. They've updated their website and social media offerings, and so they're doing that. They are currently working on the Cascade Connector project, which is the second half or the second infrastructure project that they're doing with grant money from us. That's going to help to connect sort of the area in Langley where a lot of the arts and culture organizations are, the Whidbey Island Center for the Arts, their community center, to their downtown core. So they're doing a really cool project with that. The port has had a zoning overlay change in the part of the district where their fairgrounds is, so they'll be able to hopefully put some housing in there. They identified way back in the day that housing and affordable housing and artist housing was something that was desperately needed, and so they've been helping to work on doing that. And then also mention that 2021 was a banner year for their studios and galleries, and that they've been seeing people visiting into them and all of that kind of stuff equal to the numbers that they saw in 2019, which is fantastic. Next, we have Olympia. Olympia has been certified for 3 years. Also in June of 2019, one of the big things that they did this year was to enter into a contract with the Olympia Downtown Association to do more of the day-to-day management of the creative district work. They created a creative district advisory committee to help guide them through that process. You know, making sure that the work they're doing is reflective of their community. They have gotten through the WashDOT signage. Actually, they had already gone through that process, and it was just installed recently. We know that many of you are working on WashDOT signage and may be waiting for it to be installed. There were some delays on WashDOT's end. Some of it has to do with supply chain. And then also for a while there, they were kind of short-staffed, but it sounds like WashDOT's getting more folks on board, and so they're able to clear that backlog a little bit. The redevelopment of the Olympia Armory space continues. For those of you that don't know what that is, the Armory was an old building armory, that was owned by the state. The city of Olympia was able to procure that building and are working with a number of community partners to redevelop it into an arts and cultural center. It's a really cool, old, sort of Art Deco looking building, and they're working on getting grants to help support that as well. As part of their work, they've done the survey of their creative community with that advisory committee to really hone in on where their district's headed. And then also, as Desiree mentioned, they hosted the Love Ole Street Fest, which was a festival sort of in the downtown area that is a community block party that they did. And it was pretty cool. Hopefully it's something that will continue moving forward. Next slide, please. So then we have Port Townsend, which also has been certified for about 2.5 years. The creative district is working on developing an arts and culture plan, kind of in conjunction with city leaders. They received a $30,000 grant from the city to do that work. It was pretty awesome. The money was ARA funding, or ARPA funding, I should say, not ARA. That was the other recession that we had. So they talked about the Soundcheck Arts Festival, which was a big signature event that they started this year. It sounded like a really excellent event. They had live performances that had come back pretty strongly. Music is back. You know, they mentioned their buskers in the park project that they're working on. And then also there was some cross collaboration with Port Townsend and Bainbridge, where Port Townsend hosted a tour for the Bainbridge Creative District once they got on board, just see some of the things that they were working on and see some of that cross collaboration. And so that's something we definitely encourage all the districts to do, is reach out to your friends that are close by, or even if they're not close by, and see if you can go visit each other's creative districts and learn from each other. Next, we have Rainier Valley. Rainier Valley also is in their first year of certification. They were certified in feel like it was the summer of last year. I don't remember the exact date, but they had a ribbon cutting ceremony. And it says, "It was awesome. Thanks for your hospitality, Port Townsend Creative District." So Rainier Valley had a ribbon cutting ceremony that was fantastic. I had the privilege of being asked to join them for the day. It was really great. It was held at the Rainier Arts Center. A lot of folks from all around Seattle come. Our board president came. The mayor of Seattle was there. You can see him standing next to Aqua, who's in the purple dress in this picture. So that was really great. They've really been focusing on the nuts and bolts of getting their district off the ground, their governance structure, making sure that they can come up with more diverse partnerships, that they're bringing folks together, as Afua and Evan both mentioned. That's the foundation of a long-term, sustainable, successful creative district, is making sure that your ducks are in a row in that way, having a good governance structure, a good plan, making sure that you're representing the community. And then one of the cool projects that they mentioned that's happening is El Centro de la Raza is a nonprofit organization that is in Seattle, and they are working on developing an affordable housing project in the creative district, which, as many of you can know, housing everywhere is a problem, but it's particularly an issue in Seattle, particularly in South Seattle, because it's almost unaffordable for just about everybody, unfortunately. But so all these great things are happening in their district. Next, we have Tenino, also been certified for about 2.5 years. George mentioned the Tenino Holiday Market. So that's something that they're working on. You can see a picture of it here, where they converted basically sort of an underused storefront into a sort of cooperative holiday market where people could come and get all kinds of art and made products from local artisans. And it's something that they're continuing in various iterations as we go. They had an Arttober Fine Arts show, which also was pretty cool. It was a juried show that, they had lots of submissions and were able to choose, that sort of thing. I believe it's still continuing. So that's going to be great. The city created a park. So that's parks, arts, recreation, and culture staff position to help with that, to work with George and the other folks to support their creative district. Lots of new businesses have come into Tenino, including a really awesome quilt store. So apparently folks from all over the country go to this quilt store to visit it, and it's a pretty neat place. They're also working on the Equestrian Center, which I believe George was opened. And so that is a little bit outside of downtown, but it's going to help to bring, hundreds and hundreds of folks to the community. And then the city is embarking on a number of remodeling of city facilities within the creative district. So they have a pool, a community pool that's sort of outdoors. It's really an interesting pool, and they're working on redeveloping that, and the park area that's right next to it, to this Tenino City Park. So there's been some construction projects that have happened recently in that stuff as well. Next, we have TWISP. All right, and so TWISP has also been certified for about 2.5 years. One of the big projects that they worked on were wayfinding signage art panels for their capital project. So doing some of that, wayfinding, it's something that's going to continue to be worked on in conjunction with the city. It's a part of a larger sort of infrastructure project and wayfinding and signage project to help people get through and around town, both on foot and also, by car or bike. They've hosted some TWISP arts walks, which are really great. And so that's an activity that the district is working on. They had a Meadow Arts Festival that's been happening for many years that finally reopened. It was closed for COVID, but it reopened again this year, and sounded like, or this past year, I should say, it sounded like it was well attended. And the Twist Civic Building is set to open, or it should be open, I guess, relatively soon. And that's going to be another gathering place for folks and to experience creativity in the community. And then also in the report, they mentioned that a number of new businesses have opened in their downtown core, including some restaurants and galleries. So that's just a really quick overview of some of the work that folks have been doing. All of this information is based on the reporting that was provided to us from the districts. So Adrian, I don't know if you can stop sharing. So hopefully I really quickly represented all of you well based on the information you provided to me. We will have a more in-depth report that we're going to be publishing in November in conjunction with our agency's annual report. So there is that. We will be providing this information to our board of directors also at the board meeting in November, because they're very, very curious to know what kind of work you all have been doing, and particularly through COVID. Honestly, I think that a number of our particularly legislative members of our commission are curious about that and to see how that has shaked out in the different communities. You know, the creative sector in certain areas was devastated by COVID, and some aspects of the creative sector actually grew during COVID. And so it's been a mixed bag. And so we want to be able to report on, frankly, what I consider to be pretty amazing success that all of you have had during an extremely challenging time in our culture and in our history. The fact that you were able to bring your communities together, that you were able to help support that work is pretty phenomenal. And you all should be really proud of yourselves for doing that. So congratulations to all of you on the great work that you've done. And obviously we look forward to hearing more about that again next year. Same process is that we'll take that annual report information from you at the end of the fiscal year. One of the things that we also want to talk about is we want to talk about because we do have a couple minutes left, we have a budget request that we have put to the legislature that we've submitted to the governor and then also to the legislature. It's a formality. It is for our creative districts capital projects grant program. Because it's a capital projects grant program, we have to ask for a request, for every single fiscal biennium. And that's operating funds work a little bit differently. So we did not have to re-request our operating funds, but we do have to re-request our capital funds. And so we have done that. And we have requested to basically re-up the program with the funding that it has. We also asked for a sort of reallocation of unspent funds. We believe that probably based on the trajectory of the projects and where folks are at, we'll have some funding available for next, from this fiscal biennium that can be applied into next fiscal biennium. That is allowable, because not always, capital projects don't always go according to timelines and plans that we want. So the legislature makes allowances for that. That said, it is not guaranteed that we're going to get that money, right? So that means two things for all of you. Number one, if you are working on projects currently, it would behoove you to try to get those projects moved forward as much as possible before the end of the fiscal biennium. So that way the projects, the monies that have been allocated for your projects will be guaranteed to get to you. If, for example, we made a request for reallocating roughly $200,000 of that $400,000 amount. So roughly just under 200,000 has already been allocated. Yep, Sean's saying, hold on just a second. So has been allocated already, with the exception of Bainbridge, who's already completed their project. We haven't been receiving any kind of requests for reimbursement. So we presume you all are diligently working on your projects. The other $200,000 has been unallocated at this point. It's sitting in reserve for communities who either A, didn't take their full amount that they got for their project, or are brand new, and so they have money available for them. But again, it's not guaranteed at this point. I would also like to encourage all of you to remember that we live in a representative democracy. And as such, you all have responsibilities as citizens to let your representatives know what things are important to you. And so I encourage you to do so. That is something you are able to do. So reach out to your local, not your local, but your state representatives on both the Senate and the House side to let them know that you're part of a creative district and you want to continue that funding. We cannot do that. We cannot do direct advocacy, as many of you know, because we are a state agency, but we can encourage our folks to do their job, to do their duty as citizens of Washington State and the United States. So I encourage you to do that. And I'm not going to talk about the A word anymore. So we're going to move on to the next thing. Stefan's laughing because he knows what that means. And then Sean mentioned Arts, History, and Science Lobby Week is coming up in February. Yes, our partner Inspire Washington is one of the main organizations that focuses on that. So feel free to get connected with them. And there's a whole series of events that goes along with that as well. We may be involved in some of those a little bit more this year if they're, I don't know, Adrian, do we know if they're doing in-person stuff at the Ledge this year? So like Arts and Heritage Day, for example, for those of you that have been around for a while. Go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, I think what I've heard is that some pieces will be in person, that they're trying to encourage in-person activities, but that not necessarily everything will be. So maybe consider it a hybrid.
Okay, that's good to know. So what that means is if you so desire, you may have an opportunity to come to Olympia and meet directly with your representatives at the House, at the state capitol, in their offices potentially, or somewhere to kind of talk about that sort of thing. Okay. So hopefully that was a good update for everybody. So we have kind of concluded the talky part of the day. So lots of talking has happened, lots of introductions. I've done basically my report out for the work that we're going to be doing. And now we're going to be getting involved in some more fun activities. So we have an activity that's going to be approximately an hour long. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get into small groups by geographic area. So we're putting creative districts together. And you guys are going to pretend or work on a project together that you work for Travel and Leisure magazine or Sunset magazine or TripAdvisor. And your job is to kind of devise create a 72-hour crash creative district tour. So your districts will be put together. You decide the order in which your districts kind of go together. What are the highlights? So if I'm a brand new person, I've never been to your creative district, what are the must-sees? Where do I stay? Where do I eat? What do I do? Where do I go? You can decide as your group what time of the year it is, or if it's not, if you want to just throw different events together, that's fine. And then your collective group of 3, except there's one group that has 4 districts, and the 4 district you can do 96 hours, right? So if you want to give equal time to everybody, that would be great. And then what you're going to do is have one person or maybe 2 people do a report out and give us the rundown in less than 5 minutes of what 72 hours in your creative district tour is going to look like. So Adrian is going to put folks together we just picked sort of random-ish geographically congruent areas. So it's kind of random, but you don't get to choose the partners are going to be. We've sort of pre-chosen them for you. Just going to put you into breakouts to do that. So we encourage that if you are from a district, think about those highlights for your individual district and then you can start sharing them amongst the larger group. You each will have approximately 35 minutes to spend on this planning, this crash tour. And then we're going to spend the last 20 minutes of this hour to give everybody an opportunity to share, share and do a little report out. So it's kind of like a pitch, as it were, but different from the Pitch Fest from last year. We want you to start thinking about how do we reach out? What's great about our district that we need to share with the larger world? After that, we'll take a break, and then for about 10-15 minutes, and then we have another group activity where we're going to talk about long-term funding for our creative district program, individually, collectively, and a potential decision package that we might make to help support that. So Adrian, whenever you're ready with the with groups, let me know, and then we'll just have everybody go into them.
Yep, I'm ready to open them.
All right, sounds great. So go ahead and have fun, everybody, and we'll call you back here at about 11:40 to do your presentation.